Hi, I'm Sharon Sobel. This is my model, Ryan Woods. We are in the makeup studio in the Weber Fine Arts building at University of Nebraska at Omaha. Today we're going to be demonstrating some makeup techniques that will give the impression of old age. Now, Ryan has already washed her face and used moisturizer. I have applied her foundation and her contouring on her forehead. But before I did that, I washed my hands with antibacterial soap. It's very important that you have clean hands when applying your makeup, or especially someone else's. Now, it's also important to remember that if you have acne or any skin allergies at all, you need to talk to a dermatologist before using any cosmetics or theatrical makeup. So now I want to talk before I demonstrate any techniques, I just want to talk a little bit about how the face ages. Now, the longer you're alive on this earth, the longer gravity will have to work on your face. Also, as you age, you start to lose some elasticity in your skin and some of the subcutaneous fat that sits under your skin. So just keep thinking about gravity pulling down on the face and the skin not being able to bounce back, and none of that lovely subcutaneous fat holding the skin outward. So the first thing we're going to do is look at how the eye ages. One of the first places that we start to age is in the delicate tissue underneath the eye. Now, if you have dark circles under your eyes, you'll get a pretty good idea of where your eye bag is going to be. Ryan doesn't have very much in the way of a dark shadow, so what we might have to do is give a little push or a little pull and feel around and find where that spot is going to be that's going to create an eye bag. So when I talk about the eye bag, I'm talking about underneath the eye where the skin will start to fall down, and it'll actually sort of create a little fold over the cheek area. So I'm going to follow, she's got just a little bit of shadow under her eyes, but I'm going to try to determine where I think her eyes would age. And you might have to try looking for this spot several times until you do. Now, I'm putting a swath of highlight, this is what I'm going to call a support highlight, under her eye. And what I'm also doing that you'll notice is that I'm creating a hard edge of highlight on the upper edge, and that the lower edge is actually a soft edge which will blend out into the foundation. So the upper edge is hard and the lower edge is soft. And you can see already you're starting to get a sense of where the shadow is going to be in the eye bag. You can also start to see, and the lights are hitting this little area over here, which is where the eye bag is going to be. Now, the eye bag is a shape, it's sort of an arc shape, and it's very narrow at one end. It gets wider, and then it gets narrower again. So narrow here, and a little wider in the middle. And it's not always right in the center. Sometimes it's a little bit further out on the face. Now, where I've placed this eye bag is pretty good, but it's a little too close to the lower highlight because I want to leave room to shadow. So I'm going to use my non-latex sponge, and I'm going to use that as a bit of an eraser and create a little room. Since I did that, I just kind of messed up my sharp edge, so I'm just going to go back and lay in that hard edge again. And you can, again, see how that's creating a sense of eye bag. Now, you can do this if you're doing early middle age and you want an eye bag. You can actually use just the highlight, but since we're going to be going into our 60s, 70s, 80s, we're going to try to make Ryan look as old as possible. We're going to use some shadow. So I'm cleaning off my brush, as I always do when I switch from highlight to shadow. And now I'm going to very carefully not pick up too much with shadow. You want to be very careful. And I'm going to create a hard edge right up against the highlight with the shadow. And you can see I'm using the point of my brush. Okay. Now another thing we can do to help the eyes look a little older and maybe a little puffier is we can work on the lower lid directly below Ryan's eye, and she's going to just look up at the ceiling, and I'm just going to put in a little bit of highlight right along her lower lid, and that's going to help it puff out, and it's going to accentuate all the wonderful lines we're doing. I'm switching to a smaller brush. I'm going to use this for blending, but I'm also going in a pretty tight space, and I want to create a real crease under this eyelid. And so there we have the placement of the 3 highlights and 2 shadows. So they really are alternating each way. Now I want to blend them. So I'm going to start by blending, and I think I'll use that medium brush again. I'll start by blending the lower highlight. Now remember, we've got this upper edge that we want to keep crisp and hard. So we're just blending the lower edge into her skin tone. Now we're going to blend that arc, which is the actual eye bag. And then Ryan, if you'd look up at the ceiling for me, thank you. We're just going to blend just a little bit so you don't see such a hard edge on her lower lid. I'm going to clean off my brush, and I'm going to blend the shadow here. And now using my small brush, I'm going to very, very carefully blend the upper edge of the shadow, keeping the lower edge crisp. And this should create the look of an eye bag sort of rolling over. Now, if you feel that maybe you've gone a little too far with your shadow, you can always just take a little bit of your highlight and just go right back in and touch it up. And this might look a little bit strong, but we're going to powder this. And after we powder, everything's going to sort of blend together. We're also going to do some stippling on it, and the stippling will help create sort of a distraction so you won't see such hard lines. So this is the first step in creating age on the face. I've just finished applying makeup to Ryan's other eye, so now she's even from one side to the other. The next part we're going to work on is what's called the orbital part of the eye. This is the part underneath the eyebrow. Now, if you push it down, you're going to see that you can create a very droopy area of the upper lid. And if you keep your eyes open, they can really see how that's going to work. We're going to treat this very much like the droopy eye bag on the lower lid, because we're going to start with a support highlight, and then we're going to put in the shadow above that. So first thing I'm going to do is pick up some highlight on my brush, and we're going to push this down, and I'm going to determine that her droopy upper eyelid is going to come down to about here. And as with anything you do with your makeup, you really need to practice and figure out exactly where things go. You might not get it right the first time, but just keep at it. And it also helps to look at your parents and grandparents and see where they have started to age. So here we are with our support highlight. Now, just like the support highlight for our lower lid, we have a hard edge above, and we have a softer edge below, which is going to get blended. But this hard edge will stay firm and hard because it's going to be right up against the shadow. So now we're going to put in this actual area of droopy orbital part. We're going to start up under the eyebrow, and we're going to drop down and create what could be called a swoosh. So it's an arc that goes into a line. And you can see how this gives us a very diagonal shape, which supports the pressing down that we did before. Now this application, or this swath of makeup, is a soft edge on both sides. And if you open your eyes now, people can see that it really gives a sense that the eye is drooping. Now notice I've left a little area, and that's for my shadow. I'm going to take my smallest brush, because this is a very tight area, even tighter than down here. And if you close your eyes for me, great. I'm going to put in a very hard edge of shadow right up against the hard edge of highlight. And I'm going to let the upper edge be soft. Okay, now if you'll open your eyes, we can see how that works. So now I'm going to clean off my little brush and blend. So starting with this lower highlight, keeping that top edge crisp, we're going to blend the highlight down. And on the upper highlight, we're going to blend both the upper and the lower edge. And now I'm going to clean off my brush and blend the shadow. Now remember, the lower edge of the shadow is a hard edge, and the upper edge is a soft edge. And this is going to help create a feeling of the droopy highlight. I think I lost a little bit of the highlight, a little more than I wanted to, so I'm just going to go back in, and I'm going to very carefully and very lightly just add in another pop of highlight. And what that should do is really give a feel of the skin rolling around. Now, one last thing we can do that will help accentuate the downward motion of gravity working on her face is to make the eyebrows look like they're dropping as well. And one way to do that is take just a little bit of your shadow color and sort of cheat it in right under your eyebrow and very lightly just feather in a little bit of shadow. And what that does is it will push that eyebrow down. Now, if you open your eyes and take a look right at the camera, you can see how everything looks like it's really being pushed down. So now we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to apply makeup to Ryan's other eye. As you age, your nose will continue to grow. Unless you are creating the appearance of a rounded ball of the nose, extend the highlight on the bridge to the tip of the nose or even beyond. Continue the shadow on either side to support the highlight. Continue your shadow all the way down onto the ball of the nose, surrounding the highlight to help create a point. After you clean off your brush, carefully blend your highlight and shadow. The creases which connect the upper part of the nares of the nose to the outer corners of the lips are called the nasolabial folds or the nasolabial furrows. You can find the correct placement for these creases by smiling really hard, showing a lot of teeth. And when you relax, a trace of the creases will remain. We will handle the nasolabial fold in a similar manner to the way we handle the eye bags. Use your medium flat brush to apply a swath of highlight inside the crease that you have created towards the center of the face, following the curve. Keep the edge which touches the crease sharp. Allow the inner edge to fade out if you can. Blend the inner edge. Use your small flat brush to apply a swath of highlight on your cheek, parallel to the previous highlight. Leave room for the shadow. Blend both edges of this highlight, both inner and outer. Use your small brush to apply a swath of shadow in the crease, right up against the inner highlight, following the curve. Keep the inner edge against the crease sharp. Allow the outer edge to fade out. When you frown, you create vertical creases from the outer corners of the mouth, which are very similar to the nasolabial fold. Apply highlight and shadow to these creases in the same way as you would for the nasolabial folds, leaving hard edges at the crease and soft edges where the skin rolls. As you age, the skin along your jawline will also begin to fall, and you'll see jowls. To find them, pull your chin into your neck and gently press down on the skin to see what it will look like as it droops. The skin of the face connects to the skin on the neck, and that will obliterate the highlight that you usually put on your jawline. Use your wide brush to apply a swath of highlight, starting at the top of the jawline in front of the lower ear. Continue down along the fold of skin you have created, down under your chin and onto your neck. Use your wide brush to apply a swath of shadow under your highlight, leaving some room to blend, and then apply a swath of shadow in front of the highlight, leaving room to blend. Clean off your brush and blend all of the edges so you have smooth contouring. I've just applied highlight and shadow to Ryan's other jawline to create the sense of jowls. Now we're going to look at fine lines and wrinkles. By the time you reach your 60s and 70s, you will have developed fine lines and wrinkles on your forehead, on your eyes, and on other parts of your face. Notice that we are working on fine lines and wrinkles after we have created all of the drooping skin on the face. This is because the fine lines and wrinkles are very delicate, and the application of the makeup to create them will be very delicate. Anything that we apply afterwards would obliterate it. So make sure you get all of your jowls and your eye bags done before you start applying fine lines and wrinkles. When applying the fine lines and wrinkles, the deepest parts will be shadowed, and the parts that protrude will be highlighted, as we usually do. Also remember that the wrinkles are never symmetrical and they are never regular in width. When we're applying the wrinkles, make sure that you apply only to places where they might actually occur on your face based on your musculature. To find the placement of wrinkles on your forehead, raise your eyebrows really high. Use the sharp end of your smallest flat brush to apply an extremely thin line of shadow to the deepest part of the wrinkle. Alternately apply more and then less pressure as you move along to create a variety of thicknesses. Make sure that the lines that you're applying are not symmetrical on the face. Very symmetrical lines will make the wrinkles look very fake. Next, use the flat side of the smallest brush to apply highlight to the top of the outward rolls of skin, both above and below the wrinkles. Start out with as thin a line as possible, turning your brush and allowing it to widen, and then thin out again as you reach the end and fade out. Because these wrinkles are so small, you may not need to blend the edges of your highlights and shadows. To find the placement for wrinkles around your eyes, smile hard as you would for apple cheeks or for nasolabial folds. You might also need to push up on your cheeks to create the wrinkles. When you relax, a trace of the creases will remain. Notice that the wrinkles under your eyes will start in the eye bag area, following the shape of your lower eyelid, and then curve out over the cheekbone, creating an almost S curve. Apply the shadow and the supporting highlight in the same way as you would for the forehead wrinkles. First, start with thin lines of shadow in the deepest part, and then highlight on the outward rolls. These wrinkles are very, very close together, so use the sharp end of your brush for the highlights and for the shadows, and do not blend. Just leave the edges of all the lines sharp. When applying wrinkles to the lips, apply the lip color first. Even if your character is wearing lipstick, the wrinkles will show through. Pucker your lips to find the placement of the wrinkles. Notice that the lines are not parallel to each other. Rather, they start to radiate out in a diagonal manner as you move outward on the lip. Apply the shadow and the supporting highlight following the wrinkles you have made. As you age, your skin will become less smooth. You can see that Ryan, even though I've applied a lot of wrinkles and drooping skin, still has very smooth skin. But as you get older, you'll have larger pores, the texture will become rougher, you might develop ruddiness or discolorations from the sun. So what you can do is use a stipple sponge, which looks very much like air conditioning foam, which it basically is. And we can use this as an application tool with our shadow color and a little bit of highlight color to create texture on the face. So I'm going to press the sponge into the makeup and try it out on my hand to make sure it doesn't get too dark. And I'm going to slowly and very carefully press it onto Ryan's skin. I'm going to start around the outer edges, and that's actually where you'll see more skin damage. And it's also where you can hide it if you mess up a little bit. And every time you press in, you want to try it again to make sure you don't have too much on your stipple sponge. And we're going to slowly and very carefully stipple over her entire face to create texture. Now, if you feel you've gotten a little bit too heavy with the shadow color, or if you just want to give a little bit more texture, you can go in with your highlight color as well, and that might lighten a few of the spots that are in the center of the face. So I like a combination of highlight and shadow for stipple. I think it gives a lot more dimension. Okay, and here we have a stippled face. And you can see it really takes down all the strong highlight and shadow, so it looks a lot subtler. And when you see it from the stage, it's really going to give an impression of older skin that doesn't have that young, smooth brightness of a young woman in her early 20s. One other thing you might want to try as you're creating an old age makeup is whitening the eyebrows. Now, your character may be the kind who wears eyeliner or eyebrow pencil, but if she's not, or if he is not, then you might want to just whiten the eyebrows. You'd more likely do this on a man who would not use an eyebrow pencil, but a woman might also have a little bit of whitening of the hair. Of course, this would have to go with a white or gray wig. So here we have one side, and very easily we can paint it on the other. And that really, I think, brings a sense of age to the character, having this white hair whitener on her eyebrows. The last step in applying the makeup is powdering. So I've shaken some of Ryan's powder onto a velour sponge, and I've pressed it into the sponge. And now I'm going to flick it to loosen a little bit of it, and I'm going to very carefully pat her face with the powder to set it. Especially on an old age makeup with a lot of lines and a lot of stippling, you want to be very, very careful with your powdering. It's very easy to mess up the very careful and delicate lines that you've applied. The powder will help set the makeup, and it will also take down the contrast of the highlight and shadow so that it looks even more realistic. Make sure that you get the entire face, get into every nook and cranny, the lips, under the chin, in the eyes, or on the eyelids, not actually in the eyes. And if you see any powder that's sitting on the surface of the skin, you can always just hit it with the sponge and pick it up a little bit with the sponge, or you can use a little powder brush and start moving it around. And this will help set your makeup. And it will also, as I mentioned, even things out so it looks a little bit more realistic. And this is our old age makeup.